Hello and welcome. I'm super excited. Today I am joined by Jill Davenport. We're going to talk all things stories. And Jill is here. I'll let her introduce herself and share a little bit about who she is and who she helps.
Hi, thank you. Thanks so much for having me, Kiki.
Okay.
Um, my name is Jill Davenport, and I'm a confidence coach. I'm also a Reiki Master and a story director. So I've been offering these story directing sessions, and they've been going really well, helping people excavate stories to share with their audience. And yeah, so that's what I'm doing now. It's been really fun. It's been really well, I don't want to talk too much about it. I'll just tell you that's what I do. we can dive in more if you want.
Yes. And I will say, you and I just had a session and it was magical and mind blowing. You don't realize how many stories you have because they're yours, right? So you just kind of take them for granted. And you seem very excited the more and more we talked. And I was like, well, if she's excited, chances are other people are going to be excited.
Yes, exactly. It's like we're too close to our stories oftentimes that we think, oh, that's not interesting, or even like what to talk, like drawing a blank on what to say or what to talk about or what's even relevant. And just having someone to ask and like be curious and see if the like have a sounding board is really helpful, I've found.
Yes, it was really helpful to have you ask the questions and kind of pull the stories out. But then if I went off on a tangent, you were like, okay, let's go back to this.
Yes, because once they start flowing, there's all these other things that come out, and then it becomes like this sort of a mind map. I'm getting comfortable with the chaos that like comes out, and then just like reeling it back in, because we got to kind of like put all our paints out there, and then start to form them into a picture that we want to create.
Yes. So how did you come up with this idea? What's your story?
Well, it kind of just happened to me. Like it was this, I think I just like got an entity took over. It was like, not really, but it was, so I was talking to people. It was all happened in 1 week. I kept talking to people and they would be talking about something. I'm like, oh, that's really good. You could use that. And this is my thing that I do for like a camera shot, like for a movie. And somebody thought it was a football thing yesterday. And I was like, definitely not football reference. You will not hear those from me.
No, I'm with you there.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, this is good. You could use that for a podcast, or you could use that for a blog post, or somebody was talking about what they do. And I was asking them more questions about it. And they're like, oh, I should be recording this actually. And then I was like, hey, maybe I can do this. Like maybe this would be helpful for people. And I have a background in improv and acting, and I'm a theater major and did film. And so like it's in my wheelhouse. And I was like, oh, this could be really fun. So I just put it out, like made an offer out on my Instagram stories. It was just like, hey, I'm doing this thing. And then I had people like responding right away, which is like, I haven't really had that happen to very many offers that I've made out in the world. Like I have to usually like tell people several times about things or whatever. And I was like, whoa, people really like this. And then I wanted to try it out. And so I was offering these sessions and just seeing how it goes so I can like sort of shape it into something and see if it's like even something that I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, they've been going really well and really fun. And yeah, I love it. So that's how it happened. It just happened. Like even after I did it, after I put the story out, like later on, I was like, what was I even doing? Like, I don't even know. Just something like took over my hand and started typing. And then I was like, do I, like, I didn't even have time to go into the like imposter syndrome or whatever before I put it out. I just did it. And then I was like, oh, I'm just going to go with it and
See what happens.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I feel like that's when the magic really happens, when you're just detached and you're having fun and you're just in your element. You get a download, you do it, you move on to the next thing and you don't question it, right? You're like, this
Yes.
is meant to happen.
Yeah, totally.
So stories that connect, or they're the key to connecting. How did you come up with that?
So I guess I came up with it because we as humans, we love to hear stories. We love to tell stories. It's just part of our DNA. Like we've been telling stories since, the cave days, and it's just how we communicate, and it just makes things so much more interesting. And so if you're a business owner or creator and you need to connect with an audience, or you have to go to the talker, whatever it is, the telling a story just makes it more interesting. It helps us to have images and colors and ways that we can actually put ourselves in, like as a listener, ways that we can actually see a scene and see what they're talking about in a way that's less like facts and data, but more like, oh, this is fun. Like it's a story. We love to read books. We love to watch movies.
Yes.
So, like our audience's attentions are so, they're so sacred these days. Yeah, because there's so much going on. And so like the more that we can be connecting with stories and things that are entertaining and things that are pleasurable for them to go into, the more they're going to stick around and connect and also say, oh, remember things about you that they might not remember if you don't share your stories.
Yes. And would you say repetition is also key?
Yes.
Because I feel like I've dropped the ball here. Like I say it once, I'm like, oh, you didn't know? But because there's just so much noise and chaos, there are multiple platforms. I mean, when I was in high school and college, we barely had like the flip phone, and now like our computer is in our back pocket, right?
Yeah.
So it's just completely different. Pros and cons, we were able to go out and get lost, and our parents didn't have like a tracking GPS or Find My Phone or Life 360, whatever parents are using these days to know where their kids are. So it's a very different time to be living in society.
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't remember what I was going to say about that, but yeah, totally. I used to have a beeper. I mean, I was like, my mom would beat me and be like, call me for a payphone, and be like, oh, I don't know, I didn't get your beep. Sorry, Mom, if you're listening.
No, we even had the payphone in the school, right? So if you had to call home or do anything, we had that. And now it's like in a museum somewhere. Who knows?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like everything is right there. But yeah, again, it's like people's attentions. We have so many things that we can look at, and there's so much information coming in. Oh, that's because like what you were saying, that you have to repeat.
Yes.
Because first of all, not everybody's going to hear it the first time. Second of all, we're like, becoming like goldfish, like just in and out. The information is like, you have to hear it so many times, I mean, I can speak for myself. It's like the more social media and, computer stuff I consume, the more I'm like, what was that? It's just like little sound bites that are floating around somewhere. Yeah.
Like, I just remember how many phone numbers I used to have memorized, and now I couldn't tell you my mom's phone number if I couldn't have my speed dial and just look her up. It's just
Same.
Technologically handicapped, I guess, is the new thing. We're just so used to it and rely on it. But yeah, I mean, in sales, when I first started 15, 20 years ago, you used to have to touch or tell a story or, reach out to a client 7 times. Then it got up to 10 to 12. Now I believe it's truly over 20. Like they have to see you, hear you. It's not even the like, no trust factor. It's just piecing it together, who you are with your story, with your brand, with what you do, and connecting the dots. I mean, we all see the golden arches. We know that's McDonald's by now, right?
Right.
They don't have to spend as much time on their marketing. Any of the big logos, Starbucks, you name any of the big ones, and we know. So
exactly. And it's like, and it's one thing to have like a hamburger place, but it's another thing, like if you're a service provider, then that's much more intimate than going to get a smoothie or whatever, a slushie. I don't know what they call it at McDonald's.
McFlurries? Are those still around? I don't know. Happy Meals?
Yeah, exactly.
But you're right. I mean, you are your brand as an entrepreneur, and there are just so many things and so many layers to it, right? Like, how much do I share? What am I comfortable sharing? Do people really care about the personal? That was me for the longest time. I was so like buttoned up and only about the business, because I was like, people don't care what I'm having for breakfast. They don't care about my cat. Oh, they love that stuff. Like,
yes,
stories.
Show us your cat.
Yeah, it's always the cat. Yeah. Is he okay? Did you take him to the vet? How's he feeling? What is he getting into today?
Yeah. It's the things that make you and the things that they can relate to. They say, I have a cat, or whatever. I'm having that for breakfast, or, oh, did you, it just like creates a connection. Like if you're meeting someone in person and you're making a friend, really,
Yeah. I mean, when you take all the tactics, strategy, whatever you want to call it, you're looking for that community, that connection, that relationship. We're in the business of building them and maintaining them and strengthening them.
Yeah. And the beautiful thing about that is like, that will follow you wherever you go in a good way. Like if,
Right.
like, oh, I like her because of this. And it doesn't necessarily have to do with your service offering, but it's like, they just feel like connected to you. And it's like, oh, what are you doing now? I just want to be around you,
Right. It could be your energy. It might not have anything to do with your offer or what you do. It's how you make them feel. I mean,
Yeah.
It really always comes down to that. And I had a mentor many years ago. She's like, when your girlfriend comes over and she's got news, like, oh, we just got engaged, and all of the questions come tumbling out of your mouth. How did it happen? When are you getting married? Tell me all about it. And you just like story, story, story. But when it comes to your business, sometimes it's like, oh, I have this thing. It's new. Like if you're not excited about it and you're not like, here's how it happened, here's why I created it, here's who it helps, like that's contagious. And your people are gonna, well, what is it? What does it do? I have to have it. You made it, and you want to create that reaction with your community.
Exactly. Like the story that you came up with yesterday about how you create content and how you do your ceremony to come up with inspiration for things, and you can share it with other people. Like that is so juicy,
You use that word. Like spill the tea.
Yeah, it is. It's like, oh, and when you were telling me about it, it feels like I said, it felt like, ooh, this is like a high-end spa service that you do for content. Like, like I want that, and it just like the smudging, it's the 3 S's.
Yes, smudge, sound, and silence.
Smudge, sound, and silence. Yeah, it's like, oh, that's some next level stuff.
Yeah, the silence is the hardest for me. That took a little bit, but yeah, I didn't have a ceremony. I didn't have any type of ritual. It was like I was running from one thing to the next and then would drop in and like create. And then you've got that frenetic, chaotic, not stable, calm, intentional with purpose energy. And that can be felt on the other end, regardless of how amazing the writing was, the graphics, the pictures, you name it. You could have everything else on point, but if the energies around it is like, people aren't going to know what to do with it.
Yes, exactly. I know. And it's like, if you don't tell people how you do it, they're just like, oh, okay, she creates content, which is fine. I mean, but the story behind it is like what, I don't know. I'm like, ooh, that's good.
And until I noticed that reaction from you, I didn't realize how unique or special it was. I was taking it for granted, it's just what I do.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
How many of us do that? Like, well, this is what I do. It comes natural, it comes easy, but it doesn't to everybody else.
Exactly.
And you're a Reiki master. I'm a Reiki master. I'm sure we practice differently. I'm sure we set up differently. There are things that make you and I unique. Our clientele is different. Like we in ourselves have a specific energy and approach to how we help our Reiki clients.
Exactly. Yeah. And even if we did do the exact same thing, like our energy would be different. Our stories, our backgrounds would be different. So it's like, who do you resonate with? And the more we tell our stories, the more we can, it's a service, because it's like aligning the right people, like you with the right people with you, like, so that it's just like, okay, I know exactly. If people don't know enough about us, then it's like, maybe it'll work out, maybe it won't. But the more that they can really like vibe with us, the more it's going to be like, we're sure this is going to be a good fit.
Right. So what are some tips you can give me, other people, how to pull out those natural stories within us and share more of that?
Okay. So I would say, first I want to share that, what I've been hearing people say a lot is their concept of what a story is that they think it's supposed to be like this long, like hero's journey, like all these like long drawn out things. But Actually, a story can be just a few sentences, and I actually think it's good to start there because that way we can start small and get better as we go, because you need to earn your audience's attention. Because if you just start telling stories, or you just start creating longer content, chances are there's going to be a lot of filler, and people are going to lose interest. So if you start small and try to keep it as concise as possible, then people will say, oh, okay, that's a good story. Like, I'm interested. And then you just can tell longer stories and get better at telling longer stories. So the concept of that, just like a story can be a few sentences, that it doesn't have to be have this huge arc to it, but just like a little anecdote or story bits, what I like to call them. And a good thing to think about when you're thinking of your stories is do I have something? First of all, how did I get started is always a great story to start, usually a great story with what you're doing, because it gives kind of a background of how you got into it. A really cool thing that has happened to you while you're doing this can be stories about clients. It can be things that in ways that what you do has helped you. That's another one.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you can tie in things that have happened in your day or in your week or whatever that relate. So anything that's relatable. So can it tie into what your people need to know? But it could just be just a random story. But if you're it just depends on the, what you're doing it for. So
yeah. Lots of really good tips there. I would say the one that keeps coming back is earn your audience's attention. Like, that really resonated with me. I think we take for granted if we post it, everyone that's following us is going to read it. And that's not always the case. And if we've been silent on a platform, like for me, I've been spending a little bit more time on Instagram and in my Facebook group, but not so much on my profile. So for me to pop something up and announce something, I've been stagnant there. So I think it's going to take a little bit more time and repetition to build that momentum up and earn their attention again. Would you agree?
Yes, I think so. And not necessarily their attention, but the platform will filter you out a little bit. But sometimes you can pop back in, and if people already know you there, but you haven't been there, they might be excited that you're coming on there.
Right. I'm back. No.
Yeah. But it all just depends. Like if you're not used to telling, if you haven't told your own stories, like if you've been just reposting other people's stuff or whatever, coming on to tell your own stories, I think it is good to start short so they know what they're getting into, because people decide if they're going to stop or if they're going to keep scrolling. And so if you get good at telling really short things that give them a little, I guess, some kind of positive response, or positive interaction, or they're like, oh, I like that. That was cool. Then when they see you again, they will stop and listen.
Right.
Because most of the people listen with their, or go through social media with their sound off. Anyway, if we're talking about social media.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I do. I read.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's loud. It's there's all sorts of things coming at you, and it's you don't want to hear it all. Yeah. So the shorter to start, the better. And then you can start gradually getting longer.
I like that, because I've had a couple instances where I feel overwhelmed when I sit down and write the hero's journey or my story. And I think I was telling you yesterday, I just feel so long-winded and I'm boring myself. Nobody cares about, I was going too deep into the details, tell a story like you read a story, right? And I tend to skim over when they spend 3 pages talking about the countryside and the weather and the bugs. And I'm like, can we just get back to what's going to happen? Depicting the dead body, what's going on?
Yes. Yeah, there are some things that are good to add in, the details that color the story, but then you want to make sure that they're moving the story along or supporting the story, and not just becoming a distraction or becoming okay, where's the fast forward button?
Right. Or how can I speed this up? If it's on replay on YouTube or other things, sometimes I'm like, how do I 1.5 or 2x this?
Yes, exactly.
So awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So snackable bits, little story bites.
Snackable bits. Sorry, I just rambled through all the tips.
Yeah. I need a recap. We're talking about repetition, right?
Yes. Okay. And then it's how did you get started?
Yep. Okay.
Origin story is always good. But it's like relevant to where you are. Like you might not want to go all the way back to like when you were born and you grew up here or whatever. Now that could be a good story, but you probably don't want to do the whole story. Like you can chunk that into different pieces if it feeds into what you're wanting to connect on.
Right. But like a little mini flashback.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I was telling you yesterday, I realized I was going back too many years too far and it wasn't relevant to who I am and what I'm doing now.
Yes.
So it was interesting.
Yes.
It didn't make sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So origin stories are good because we're always curious, like, how did you get started? Like people ask me that for different iterations of what I do always, like, how did you start doing this,
Right. And I feel like the why people start their business, what is their purpose, their mission, like what drive, I don't know, that has always fascinated me. I could care less about what they do, how long they've been doing it, but just like what makes you tick, like what lights that fire under you.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, because that can get other people excited about it too.
Yeah.
Like if you're a coach or whatever, and it's like, oh, another thing is like, how has that helped you? That was another thing. Like, how has the work you do helped you or changed you in some way?
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's like doing the work, getting the work done to you, however that is, like, how has that impacted you? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We grow through what we go through, and my goal is to teach others so they don't spend as long in it as I did. I guess I was stubborn. The universe had to whack me over the head a couple times with these solutions. It happens, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I mean, I would love to hear the stories of how the universe smacked you over the head with things like. And another thing is, I think people want to like just tell like the good parts of their stories, but we like to hear the ups and downs. Like we like to hear the journey. So like, it doesn't always have to be positive. It's
right.
Yeah.
This failed, and here's what I learned. So I'll do this differently next time, or I have done this differently next time.
Yeah, and it's totally relatable because if somebody never fails, which everyone does, if somebody never talks about how they failed, then it's like, oh, okay, I can't really relate because I'm failing all the time.
Right?
Yeah.
It's the only way I move forward is I fall down, I pick myself up, and I'm like, oh, I made progress. Yay.
Yeah. I got up.
It got up. I'm still here. We're doing great.
Yeah.
This is awesome. Any final thoughts or words of wisdom you'd like to leave with our audience?
I would say that you definitely have stories to tell, and just start thinking about. Oh, another thing is just keep like your notes keep a notes app on your phone, because a lot of times we won't remember things, but it's like when you start looking for something, you start seeing more of it. Like I think about, I've always looked for the comedy in things. Like that's just how my brain works, and I've been doing it for so long. Like I find so many things funny because I'm looking for it. And the same thing with like stories or anything that you're like, you just start noticing more. So if you keep a little space for it, like things that happen in your day or whatever, that you can like maybe tie back into what you do or how you want to share or how it could help someone else, even if it's not exactly what you do, then you just keep a little note on your phone. So then you just have these things that you can talk about or like maybe open up into more stories later.
Yeah. And I've been doing some voice memos to myself. Like I'm driving or walking out. I'm like, da, 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 da. Okay, that's for later.
Yes, exactly. Voice memos.
Yeah. However but yes, have a system. Very important. I agree.
Yeah.
I'm old school. I have like multiple notebooks all the time. I'm just
so
like
many notebooks.
I do my brain dump so like I can make order of the other chaos, and
yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, how can people work with you? What do you have going on? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, so I have a few things. So I have a 3 month. I have a 3 month.
It's lunchtime now.
I did eat before this. So so I have a 3-month coaching package that I work with people as a confidence coach, and that also involves like becoming, stepping into their more authentic self and feeling really good about that. And it kind of ties in with the storytelling as well. And then I also have story directing sessions that I'm offering. And that's probably going to turn into something that's a little bit longer. Right now, I'm offering them for people. I'm doing them for free. There's kind of a wait list now, but I have a form that you probably like LinkedIn somewhere. So we just meet and I excavate stories and from you and then like you have something to walk away with. But yeah, so I don't know where that's going to go exactly, but I have some things like in the back of my mind that's going to be creating more support around telling stories because it's really fun.
Yeah, it is. Once we got going, I felt like bad. I was like, wow, I haven't shut up in like 10 minutes. It was fun. It was all good stuff. And you recorded it. So I have it to like watch back and grab different things from it. So
yeah.
But
It's always good to be able to talk about your stories. And it's always good when it's flowing. So yeah. So it was
getting in that flow state it was fun. It was very, I don't know, free. It didn't feel like stiff or like you had to pull things out of me. It was just a normal, natural conversation. It was cool. So yay. I will add all of those links you mentioned in the show notes so people can find you, connect with you, sign up for their own story session. It's totally worth it. It was a lot of fun. And they're an hour long now, right?
Yes. Yeah. For now, they are, because I was doing them 30 minutes and then they were like always going over. So I'm like, okay, let's just call them an hour because that way it's more like luxurious.
Yes. And I love it. So I posted one of the stories we talked about yesterday, and a girlfriend of mine who's pretty close, and she reached out, messaged me. She's like, I had no idea this was your process. So even people that I'm close to, that I talk to on a regular basis, that I thought they knew what I didn't. So it's just a tip to always don't be afraid to repeat yourself.
Yeah.
It was close to those on social media, to anybody. Just repetition is key.
Exactly. And that's a great tip. It's like, just assume nobody knows what you're doing. Like just.
Yeah.
Just keep telling them. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing this with us. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed our session yesterday. I feel rejuvenated and ready to go into the fall with all these like new stories and ideas. So it's perfect timing.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. This was so fun. And it was so fun to host you in the story directing playroom.
Yes. Oh, I love that. The playroom.
Yes.
Reminds me of romper room.
Yeah.
Yeah. People may not know. If you know, drop a heart in the comments because I love
know.
Yeah, I want to know who remembers romper room. And on that note, I will see you all next time. Thank you for everyone here with us live and for catching the replay. Let us know what your favorite takeaway was. Thanks again, Jill. See you next time.
Thank you, Kiki. Bye.